Aloha guys, this is Dr. Tom coming back at you. We almost finished our introduction to anatomy and physiology, but not quite. And we still had some important things to talk about. So we'll cover these and we'll go back over some of the real important stuff, which actually this is a brief PowerPoint presentation, but it's all really important. So we left off with cavities of the body. So that's where we're going to pick up right now. Okay, the way they have it divided is into a dorsal. Dorsal means the back, like on dolphins and porpoises and stuff. They have or sharks have a dorsal fin on their back. That's the way you can remember it. Ventral means front. Now, anterior and posterior also mean front and back, and they're used a lot more commonly. But in this instance, it's dorsal and ventral. Okay, so the dorsal cavity is composed of the cranial cavity, which is what contains the brain. It's completely encapsulated or enclosed with bone, and the spinal cord. So that the way they're breaking it up, it's that. The dorsal cavity is the cranial cavity and the spinal cord. The ventral cavity is the thoracic cavity, which contains the heart and the lungs. Each lung is contained in a separate category called pleural cavities. This is an odd word I'm sure you've never heard before. The mediastinum is an anatomical boundary. There is no organ in the body. If you dissected someone, you wouldn't find a mediastinum. You would, but it's not an organ. It's just a boundary that's created by a scientist. So here's the mediastinum. It contains the heart and the so-called great vessels. And then there's an abdominal pelvic cavity. That the contents of the abdominal cavity, our intestines and so forth, and liver and all, but also our urinary bladder and other stuff it's all kind of a continuous. Okay, so those are the cavities of the body. The most common you're going to hear are the thoracic cavities and the abdominal cavity. I know, and you said, no, Dr. Tom, you just said the abdominal pelvic cavity. Yeah, but it's often just referred, if it's referring just to the abdomen, they just call it the abdominal cavity. Now, speaking of the abdominal cavity, there are ways to refer to it. And there's two different methods. One is the simple one. And if you draw an X, or imaginary X, at the body with the cross over the belly button, or the umbilicus. I always make fun of that because it's always like the snooty uppity doctor said. But it's 4 centimeters. And instead of calling it centimeters, they call it centimeters. It's 4 centimeters beneath the umbilicus. Yeah, in other words, what you're saying, Doc, is it's 4 centimeters beneath the belly button, right? Yeah, okay. All right, this divides it into 4 quadrants. Right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. These are real important because they're used as reference. For example, if a patient come in with acute pain in the right lower quadrant, and if you touched them there, it hurt. And if you poked in and let it go, which is called rebound tenderness, boiling, it hurts them real bad. There's a pretty good sign, especially if they got diarrhea or nausea, vomiting, that they got appendicitis. Pain in the right lower quadrant. Now, that's the easy one. The hard one are the 9 regions of the abdominal area. So there's the epi means above. Epigastric region means above the stomach, or at the stomach, basically. The umbilical region at the belly button, and below, hypo means below the hypogastric. So here's 3, and then we have a right hypochondriac region, and a left hypochondriac, a right lumbar region, and a left lumbar region, and a right iliac region, and a left iliac region. Okay? So now you can see why I don't like this one as much as I do this one. Actually, guys, I think it probably, this is very common and everyone needs to know that, but it's very easy to understand. The other one's tougher. You need to learn it. I think it would depend on, like, if you say you complete your medical assistant, that's the program you're in, you're out in the field, depending on the type of doctor you work for, is how much of this sort of thing is going to be used. You can see that this gives more specificity than this one, which is probably when it's utilized more, why it might be utilized more. Okay, and that's it. All right, so we came that close. However, we're not done yet. We're going to go back and review some things. Because everything, guys, in this, all these things we talked about here are really important. Okay, we said anatomy is the structure of living things. Physiology is the function of living things. The body's levels of organization, all this will be tested, by the way. Atoms make up molecules, make up cells. Specialized cells make up tissues, and I don't mean the kind of tissue you blow your nose into. Specialized tissues make up organs. In this sense, it's the stomach. Groups of organs form organ systems. In this case, the digestive system. And then the various organ systems of the body make the complete person or organism. The major organ systems of the body, the integumentary system, we said, I'm sure you've never heard of that before, probably, is the skin and associated structures like hair and nails, sweat glands. Skeletal, of course, makes up the skeleton, 206 bones in the adult. Muscular, there's over 600 muscles in the adult. The nervous system, brain, spinal cord, and all the nerves in the body. Endocrine system, the complex system of glands and hormones that help control the body. Circulatory system, the heart, vessels that circulate the blood through the body. The lymphatic system, the other circulatory system. Lymph is a clear watery fluid similar to what you find in a blister, and it plays an enormous role in the body, and it has its own vessels that it flows through and all. The immune system, very important. There are 5 different kinds of white blood cells in the body that help protect us from infection, and of course it's in the news a lot right now because of the COVID pandemic. Very important. Respiratory system. We have to keep we need oxygen to make energy. We have to keep a certain amount of oxygen percentage in our blood, and breathing is what does that. Digestive system breaks down foods, absorbs, and produces energy, among other things. Urinary system. The blood has to be filtered. The kidneys do it constantly. And the unwanted substances and some water are formed into what we know as urine and is excreted out of the body. Reproductive system, to keep the human species going. Here's just quick drawings. The integumentary system only has one organ, the skin, but it's very complex. Skeletal system, 206 bones. Muscular, over 600 muscles. Nervous system, brain, spinal cord. They say, whoever they is, it's been said that if you removed all the nerves in a person's body, you could see through them. I don't know if that's true or not, but I suspect it is. Circulatory system, heart, arteries, and capillaries and veins. Endocrine system, the major glands, pituitary, thyroid, thymus, adrenal glands on top of the kidneys, pancreas, ovaries and testes. What else? I guess that's it. There's also a pineal gland deep in the brain that's not well understood. Lymphatic system, the second circulatory system of the body, has nodes that help filter and also form, and there are chains of these nodes in certain parts of the body. Have an important immune function too. Digestive system, liver. Here I didn't mention this the other day because I didn't catch it. Here's the gallbladder, that little tiny green thing. Stomach, colon, small intestine. The lungs, trachea, nasal cavities. We have 2 lungs that we breathe through. Urinary system, 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, 1 urinary bladder. Remember, we have to say urinary because there's also a gallbladder, technically. And the urethra. Urethra goes out, and the hole that we urinate through is called the urinary meatus. Reproductive system. Female, we have the uterus, ovaries, oviducts. Here's the vaginal canal. The male, we have the testes. These are the vas deferens, the tubes that conduct sperm. Goes through the prostate gland. Prostate gland makes up most of the bulk of the seminal fluid. When they get together, if the egg is fertilized successfully, in 9 months we have a new human being. Homeostasis, the term for maintaining a stable internal environment. Very important, very vital task. If things change just a little bit, death will ensue very quickly. That term, the body's ability to maintain a stable internal environment, is called homeostasis. Anatomical position, simple as pie. Standing up with your palms facing forward. Remember the map. North is on most maps. Sometimes there's different. Most maps, north is up. Anatomical position, standing like that with the palms facing forward. Later you'll find out more why we have to specify this. So anytime we say, all right, let's talk about that. Let's say, okay, the patient works as a millwright and he cut himself on the medial portion of his right forearm. Okay. Now we automatically know the medial portion of the right forearm is going to be right here. Why? Because it's assuming you're in anatomical position. If we didn't specify that anatomical position is like this, where's that camera at? And we stood this, then the medial portion becomes this part. See where I'm coming from, guys? You must specify. So, and then if remember we talked about proximal and distal. He has a 3 centimeter laceration to the distal 1/3 of his right medial forearm. We would know that right in here somewhere. Why? The distal, farthest away, 1/3. If we divided his forearm into 3 parts, the medial aspect of the distal 1/3 of the right forearm would be right in here. See how that narrows it down for us, guys? That's the way this stuff is utilized. Speaking of all that, here they are. Superior means above. Inferior means below. Anterior means front. So does ventral. Posterior means back. So does dorsal. Medial, closer to the midline. Lateral, further away from the midline. Proximal, closer to the point of origin. In the case of the arm, point of origin is the shoulder. This is proximal. This is distal. Superficial means on the surface. Deep means deep. Central means centrally located, like the central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral means out in the periphery. We talked about these planes. Sagittal plane runs this way. Coronal plane runs this way. Transverse plane runs this way. Now, I didn't mention this the other day. A sagittal plane can go right down the middle, in which case it's called a mid-sagittal plane. But it also can be out to the side. And when they order an MRI, they'll order, okay, we need a mid-sagittal plane, a mid-sagittal. It needs to go, and they'll specify how many centimeters they want those images to appear. And the computer can produce that. Regional terms. Cephalic and cranial has to do with the head, buccal cheek, orbital eye, oral mouth, cervical is the neck. Sternum is the breastbone, axillary is the armpit, brachial is the arm, antecubital is the elbow, abdominal, the inside of the elbow. Umbilical is the umbilicus, the belly button. Pubic is pubic, inguinal is the groin. Patellar, the patella is actually the name for the kneecap, but the patellar region is that region. Bottom of the foot is the plantar surface, top is the pedal surface. Occipital lobe is the back of the head or occipital bone. Deltoid is actually the name of the muscle right here. Scapular has to do with the shoulder blades, lumbar is the lower spine. Popliteal is the back of the knee. Gluteal is the butt. Caudal just means tail-like. We have a coccyx, the vestigial little bone that was once a tail, they say. And we come back to the cavities. Main cavities are thoracic cavity, which contain the heart and lungs. The mediastinum is an anatomical area that's been invented, just given that name, and it contains the heart and the lungs. I'm sorry, not the lungs, the heart and the great vessels. Dorsal cavity is spine and cranial cavity and spine. Abdominal cavity, or sometimes called abdominal pelvic, because it's sort of it's all one. And the last topic again, quickly, the quadrant systems make an X at the belly button, right and left upper, right and left lower quadrants. It's abbreviated with capital letters, RUQ, for example, right upper quadrant. And then the 9 regions, the hypogastric, lumbar, and iliac, on either side, epigastric, umbilical, and hypogastric. All right, guys, we finished up. I've already recorded our chemistry lessons. We'll see those next time. So we'll see you in our next video. Dr. Thomas signing off.